Stop buying these 11 foods. Most gardening videos lie to you. They tell you to plant garlic or sweet potatoes once to eat forever, but if you actually try that here in the United States, your crop will rot, stunt, or die in a single winter. The internet is flooded with short-form clips promising a permanent grocery store in your backyard with zero effort. But they conveniently leave out the biological reality of how perennial plants actually survive. If you don't understand the specific mechanics of how these plants interact with your soil and your winter climate, you are just throwing money into a dirt-filled grave. If you're someone who enjoys practical gardening advice backed by real-world experience, not internet hype, consider subscribing to Oak and Acre. Every week we share simple, honest ideas that help you grow more food while spending less money. The dream of planting a garden once and harvesting from it for the rest of your life is completely achievable, but it is entirely dependent on one strict framework: the USDA Plant Hardiness Zone Map. When a creator filming in sunny Zone 9 tells someone living in the biting winters of Zone 5 to leave a crop in the ground all winter, that plant is a goner. Annual crops, like your standard tomatoes and peppers, are biological sprint runners. They expend every single ounce of their energy to produce fruit and seed in a few short months, and then they die. True perennials are marathon runners. They invest their early life into building massive, complex underground root structures, using their foliage to pump carbohydrates down into the earth to survive the winter freeze. If you treat a perennial like an annual or an annual like a perennial, your self-sufficiency goals will grind to a halt before they even start. To build a garden that truly feeds you forever, you have to know the real rules of the game. Let's start with the king of perennial vegetables and the one that causes the most immediate heartbreak for beginners: asparagus. If you watch generic gardening guides, they make it look like you simply drop some seeds in the ground and start picking thick, juicy spears the following spring. That is a complete lie. If you harvest asparagus too early, you will starve the root system and kill the plant permanently. When you plant asparagus, you are playing the long game. You shouldn't even think about harvesting a single spear during the first 2 years. Asparagus is hardy across zones 3 through 9, making it incredibly versatile for American backyards, but it requires patience. In those first 2 seasons, those tiny green spears will emerge and then explode into massive, feathery green ferns that stand 4 to 5 feet tall. Most novice gardeners see these giant ferns and think something has gone wrong, or they cut them down because they look messy. That is a fatal mistake. Those ferns are solar panels. They are actively photosynthesizing, capturing sunlight, converting it into sugars, and pumping those resources deep down into the underground root crown. To set this up for a lifetime of food, you want to purchase 2-year-old bare root crowns rather than starting from seed. Dig a trench about 8 inches deep in well-draining soil. Drop the crowns in, spread their spindly roots out like an octopus, and cover them with just 2 inches of soil. As the green shoots emerge throughout the summer, gradually fill in the rest of the trench with dirt and heavy compost. By year 3, the root crown is massive and established. You can safely harvest the emerging spears for about 2 to 3 weeks in early spring. By year 4 and 5, your patience pays off. You can harvest heavily for up to 8 weeks every single spring. Once that bed is established, it will continue to push up fresh, premium food every year for 30 years or more without you ever buying another plant. While you wait for your asparagus bed to mature, you need a perennial powerhouse that delivers massive yields early in the season and can withstand the absolute worst elements your property can throw at it. That plant is rhubarb. But here is the critical safety reality check that many clickbait videos gloss over. You must never, under any circumstances, eat the leaves. Rhubarb leaves contain dangerously high levels of oxalic acid, which can cause severe kidney damage or worse. Only the thick, celery-like stalks are edible. For northern gardeners spanning zones 3 through 7, rhubarb is an absolute tank. It actively thrives in cold climates and requires a winter chill period to produce well. Another massive benefit for rural homesteaders or suburban backyard growers is that local wildlife, including deer and rabbits, will completely ignore it because of those toxic leaves. The secret to making rhubarb thrive forever is choosing the right location. It hates wet feet. If you plant it in a low-lying spot where water pools after a heavy rain, the crown will rot and turn to mush before the first winter is over. Dig a wide hole in a sun-drenched or partially shaded spot with excellent drainage. Mix in a generous amount of aged manure or compost and plant the crown just an inch below the soil surface. When it comes time to harvest, don't take a pair of pruners to the plant. Leaving a cut, open stump at the base invites fungal diseases straight into the heart of the crown. Instead, grip the stalk firmly near the soil line, give it a sharp twist and a downward pull, and it will snap cleanly away from the base. Always leave at least half of the stalks on the plant so it can continue feeding its root system for the next season's flush. Go to any viral gardening page and you'll see someone claiming you can buy a head of garlic from the grocery store, drop it in a pot, and eat garlic forever. This is deeply misleading. If you dig up the entire garlic bulb at the end of the summer to eat it, you have ended that plant's life cycle. It cannot return because you took the entire organism out of the dirt. To turn garlic into a true, self-sustaining perennial asset on your homestead, you have to completely change how you harvest. Instead of pulling the whole plant out of the earth in midsummer when the leaves start to brown, you deliberately leave 1 or 2 cloves undisturbed in the soil of your dedicated perennial bed. Here is the biological mechanism of what happens next. Over the autumn and winter, that single left-behind clove will establish a massive root system. The following spring, instead of sending up one single stalk, it will split and clone itself underground, sending up a dense clump of garlicky green tops. In early spring, when your main garden is still completely bare and frozen, you can walk out to this perennial bed with kitchen shears and snip these tender, highly flavorful green tops. They taste exactly like a cross between garlic and scallions, and they are incredible for fresh cooking. The plant will continuously regrow these greens throughout the spring. If you leave the clump alone for a couple of years, it will also push up stiff flower stalks called scapes, topped with tiny mini clones called bulbils. You can snap these scapes off to eat, or let the bulbils fall back into the dirt to plant themselves, generating an endless, infinite loop of garlic flavor without you ever spending another dime on seed bulbs. If you want a crop that requires absolutely zero specialized knowledge and will survive even the most negligent gardener, you need to plant chives. They are hardy all the way from the freezing depths of Zone 3 to the heat of Zone 9. But there is a catch that most gardeners never notice until it's too late. Chives are incredibly aggressive self-seeders. If you let their beautiful purple flowers dry out on the plant, the wind will scatter thousands of tiny black seeds across your property, and you will find chives popping up in your lawn, your gravel driveway, and your other pristine garden beds. To get the endless value of chives without the headache of an invasive takeover, you need to manage them with a simple maintenance routine. Plant them in a dedicated border or a heavy clay container. They will emerge out of the frozen ground earlier than almost any other herb on your property, completely unfazed by late spring frosts or brutal summer droughts. When you want to harvest, don't just pick off a few individual blades. Take a handful of the hollow green stems, pull them taut, and use your shears to slice the entire clump down to about 2 inches above the soil line. It looks drastic, and it looks like you've ruined the plant, but within 2 to 3 weeks, a brand new, vibrant flush of green growth will shoot straight back up. To stop them from taking over your yard, simply snip off the purple flower heads the moment they start to fade and lose their color, preventing them from dropping seed. Now we need to talk about a plant that comes with a massive, explicit warning label: Jerusalem artichokes, commonly known as sunchokes. This is a native North American sunflower that produces a massive underground bounty of crisp, nutty, potato-like tubers every autumn. Online articles rave about them because they require zero fertilizer, thrive in terrible soil, and produce massive yields. But here is the terrifying reality check: sunchokes are highly invasive. If you plant a sunchoke directly into your main, beautifully tilled garden bed, it will permanently take over that space within 3 years, and you will spend the rest of your life trying to get rid of it. Every single tiny piece of a sunchoke tuber left behind in the dirt during harvest, even something the size of your fingernail, will grow into a brand new, 6-foot tall plant the following spring. Their root systems are incredibly resilient, choking out surrounding vegetables and stealing all the light. If these ideas have already saved you from a few expensive garden mistakes, subscribing to our channel is an easy way to make sure you don't miss our future homesteading guides. The secret to harnessing the incredible food security value of sunchokes without ruining your garden is strict containment. Never put them in the ground. Instead, plant them in heavy-duty, 20-gallon fabric grow bags or dedicated, buried plastic tubs with drainage holes drilled only in the very bottom. In the spring, they will shoot up beautiful, tall stalks with bright yellow flowers that look great along a fence line. After the first hard frost of autumn hits and kills the top growth, tip the container over or dig into the isolated bed. You will find a dense cluster of starchy white tubers that can be roasted, mashed, or sliced into salads. Harvest what you want to eat, drop 3 or 4 tubers back into that contained soil, and walk away. Your winter food supply is secured indefinitely. Most backyard gardeners spend an immense amount of money and time every spring buying plastic cell packs of lettuce, spinach, and kale, only to watch them turn bitter, bolt to seed, and die the moment the midsummer heat arrives. If you want a continuous supply of gourmet greens without that endless cycle of replanting, you need to introduce French sorrel to your property. The surprising part about French sorrel is its flavor profile. It doesn't taste like bland lettuce or earthy spinach. It tastes like a burst of bright, zesty lemon. This makes it an incredible culinary asset for soups, salads, and fish dishes. It is a hardy perennial across zones 3 through 9, and it is the absolute earliest leafy green to burst out of the frozen mud in the spring, often beating wild weeds to the punch. The mistake people make with sorrel is letting it do whatever it wants in June and July. When the intense summer heat rolls in, the plant will stop focusing on leaf production and shoot up tall, coarse flower stalks to produce seed. If you leave these stalks on the plant, the leaves at the base will become incredibly tough, bitter, and unpalatable. To keep your sorrel producing tender, delicious leaves for over a decade, you must be proactive. The moment you see a thick, round flower stalk forming at the center of the plant, reach down and snap it completely off at the base. This forces the plant to redirect its biological energy away from reproduction and back into pushing out fresh, tender, lemony outer leaves. When harvesting for dinner, always peel back the larger outer leaves from the base, leaving the tiny, developing center leaves intact to grow for next week's harvest. If you are looking for a crop that provides true, intense flavor and high medicinal and culinary value year after year, horseradish is an unmatched addition to a self-sufficient homestead. But much like the sunchoke, horseradish operates under zombie rules. If you plant it directly in your in-ground garden beds, a single snapped root fragment will regenerate into an entirely new plant, and it will slowly but surely migrate out into your lawn, surviving lawn mowers, droughts, and freezes. Horseradish is incredibly cold-hardy, thriving effortlessly down to zone 3. It produces large, coarse green leaves that look like wild dock, but the true prize is the thick, pungent white taproot hidden deep underground. The mechanism behind that signature clearing of the sinus's heat is a chemical compound called sinigrin, which is only released when the cells of the root are crushed or grated. To grow horseradish correctly and permanently without an invasive takeover, plant your root cuttings into a deep, dedicated container, like a buried 5-gallon bucket or a large livestock water trough. In late autumn, after a few hard freezes have forced the plant into dormancy, use a garden fork to lift the entire root system out of the container. You will be greeted by a massive, thick main taproot surrounded by smaller, spindly side roots. Cut the main taproot away to take inside for grating and preserving into jars of homemade cocktail sauces and condiments. Then, take 2 or 3 of those smaller, pencil-thin side root cuttings and simply drop them right back into the loose container soil. They will sleep through the winter freeze and explode with vigorous new growth the following spring, ensuring your spicy harvest is secured forever. Most traditional onions are biennial plants grown as annuals. You plant a tiny set in the spring, harvest a single large bulb in the summer, and that individual plant story is completely over. Egyptian walking onions completely shatter this conventional gardening loop. They don't stay in one neat, orderly row, they literally walk across your property over time. This plant is incredibly cold hardy and works beautifully across zones 3 through 10. In the early spring, it looks and tastes exactly like a standard, productive scallion or green onion. You can chop the green tops all spring long for cooking, but as summer progresses, something bizarre happens at the top of the stalk. Instead of producing a traditional flower head with seeds, the plant grows a cluster of mini, ruby red onion bulbs right at the tip of the stem, known as topsets or bulbils. As these topset onions grow larger and heavier, the tall green stalk begins to bend under the increasing weight. Eventually, by late summer, the stalk bows completely over until the cluster of mini onions touches the bare soil a few inches away from the original plant. The moment these mini bulbs make contact with the dirt, they immediately send out roots and establish themselves as brand new individual plants. By utilizing this unique mechanical movement, a small patch of walking onions will advance across a bed year after year. To manage this and get food forever, you can harvest the shallot-like bulbs at the base of the mature plants, snip the green stalks for fresh eating, or pluck the heavy topsets off the stems to manually plant them exactly where you want your next permanent onion patch to establish itself. Sea kale is a hidden gem of agricultural history that was incredibly popular in Victorian gardens, but has been largely forgotten by modern, fast-paced commercial agriculture because it doesn't transport well in plastic grocery bags. This is a stunning, deeply resilient maritime perennial vegetable that can live on your property for 15 years or more, thriving in poor, sandy soils and coastal zones spanning from Zone 4 to Zone 8. The reality check with sea kale is that local pests, particularly slugs and snails, absolutely love the tender young spring shoots as they emerge from the soil. If you don't protect them early in the season, your perennial investment will be chewed to pieces before it can grow. However, if you protect them, you can utilize a traditional gardening technique called blanching to unlock an incredible gourmet harvest. In very early spring, before the light hits the emerging crown, walk out to your sea kale plant and cover it completely with an upside-down dark bucket or a specialized clay forcing pot, blocking out every single photon of sunlight. Because the plant is growing in total darkness, it cannot produce chlorophyll. The shoots will grow up elongated, pale purple, and incredibly tender. When you lift the bucket a few weeks later, you can harvest these blanched shoots, which taste remarkably sweet, with a flavor profile reminiscent of hazelnut-infused broccoli. Once you've taken a modest early harvest, remove the bucket for the rest of the year, allowing the plant to develop its massive, blue-green ornamental leaves and beautiful white flowers so it can store energy for the coming winter. When most American gardeners think of green beans or pole beans, they think of annual varieties that must be meticulously started from seed indoors every single spring, hardened off, trellised, and cleared away when the autumn frost turns them to black slime. Scarlet runner beans flip this script on its head, but only if you live in the right geographical region. In the northern parts of the United States, spanning zones 3 through 6, the winter freeze penetrates so deeply into the earth that it will freeze the root system solid and kill the plant, unless it is heavily protected with a massive layer of woodchip mulch or physically dug up and stored in a frost-free root cellar. However, if you are growing in zones 7 through 11, the scarlet runner bean acts as a true, permanent perennial. Beneath the soil surface, this plant develops a thick, woody, starchy underground tuberous root system that behaves exactly like a perennial potato crown. While the winter cold will completely kill off the green vines above ground, that thick root system stays alive and dormant deep in the earth. The moment the soil warms up in the spring, that massive, pre-existing root architecture explodes with incredible speed, sending up vigorous climbing vines that easily outpace any annual bean started from seed. They produce stunning, vibrant scarlet red flowers that attract every hummingbird in your county, followed by heavy, massive pods of delicious beans that can be eaten young as green snap beans, or left to mature into beautiful, mottled purple shelling beans for winter storage. If you want a perennial crop that will produce premium, high-value food for 30 to 50 years while continuously increasing the property value of your homestead, you must plant highbush blueberries. But this is the plant where more people fail than almost any other because they completely ignore soil chemistry. Blueberries have a non-negotiable biological requirement. They are obligate acid-loving plants. If your backyard soil has an alkaline or neutral pH, anything above 5.5, a blueberry plant cannot physically absorb iron and other essential nutrients through its root system, no matter how much fertilizer you dump on it. The leaves will turn a sickly yellow with bright green veins, a condition called iron chlorosis. The plant will stunt, and it will slowly die a lingering death over 2 seasons. Before you even buy a blueberry bush, you must test your soil with a reliable digital pH meter. If your soil is sitting at a standard 6.5 or 7, you have to actively construct an acidic microenvironment. Dig a wide planting hole and completely replace or heavily amend the native soil with a mixture of Canadian peat moss, decomposed pine needles, and elemental sulfur. Once planted, cover the entire root zone with a thick 4-inch layer of pure pine bark mulch. This mimics the natural acidic forest floors where wild blueberries thrive. Maintain this acidity by top-dressing with elemental sulfur once or twice a year. By giving them this specific, acidic foundation, these native North American shrubs will grow into massive, beautiful woody bushes that yield gallons of antioxidant-rich fruit every summer for generations. Now that you know which crops to choose, we have to address the single most dangerous trap that kills forever gardens across the United States. It is a mistake driven by excitement, and it happens entirely during the harvest phase, over-harvesting young plants. Annual crops are genetically bred to give you everything they have in a single explosion of production because they have no future. Perennial crops operate on a strict energy banking system. During their first 2 to 3 years in your garden, they are actively calculating how much carbohydrate fuel they can store inside their root systems before the winter freeze locks up the ground. If a well-meaning gardener walks out in year 1 or year 2 and strip mines more than 30% of a perennial plant's leaves, stems, or crowns for dinner, the biological mechanism breaks. The roots are left starved of energy, unable to maintain their cellular structure through the freezing winter months. When spring arrives, you won't see fresh green shoots breaking through the mulch. You will find nothing but a rotted, dead root system. The ultimate secret to achieving true food security with perennial crops comes down to one simple, foundational mindset shift. Invest heavily first and harvest later. Do not treat your perennial beds as a source of instant gratification. Spend the first entire season building impeccably rich, well-draining soil structures, checking your pH levels, applying heavy layers of organic mulch, and fiercely protecting the early green foliage of your plants from pests and early harvests. If you do the hard, honest work of establishing and protecting their root systems today, the biology of the plants will take over tomorrow. From year 3 onward, the garden shifts from a high-maintenance chore into a self-sustaining asset that takes care of itself, feeding you and your family for decades to come. Thank you for spending your time with us today. If you found these practical, myth-busting insights valuable, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who is trying to build a resilient backyard homestead, and drop a comment below letting us know which perennial crop you are going to plant this season. We read every single comment. We'll see you in the next video.